All right, so welcome everyone to a deep dive on securing your home or office network.
Yes, welcome.
We're going to be looking at this white paper from DrayTek on router security best practices.
Right.
And, you might think that hackers are only going after big companies or people with like really juicy data, but honestly, everyone's a target these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether they're after your banking info, your personal files, or even just to hijack your computer to add it to a botnet.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this white paper applies to all routers, not just DrayTek. So it doesn't matter what brand you've got, how old it is, these principles apply.
Okay, cool.
Across the board.
So you're saying like anyone listening can get something out of this?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great because, I think a lot of people, they hear about all this stuff and they think, oh my gosh, it's too technical. I don't know what to do. But you'd be surprised how many simple yet effective security measures you can implement without being a tech expert.
Absolutely. That's what we're going to show you today.
Perfect. I mean, I definitely need help with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all about taking those small steps that can make a big difference.
So what we're going to do in this deep dive is really equip you with that practical knowledge that you need to significantly reduce your vulnerability and protect yourself from common attacks.
We're going to give you the keys to a much more secure network.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so where do we start?
Well, let's start with router admin best practices.
Yeah.
The foundation of a secure network.
Okay, so this is like how we manage.
Yeah, this is how you manage your router, the settings, the configurations, all of that good stuff.
All right, so what's the most fundamental rule here?
The golden rule, and this can't be stressed enough, change those default passwords immediately.
Default passwords, you mean like the ones that come with the router?
Exactly.
Okay.
Those are like leaving a giant welcome hacker sign on your front door.
Right.
Think about it. Hackers have entire databases of these defaults.
Oh, wow.
They know exactly where to look.
So they just go through and try all the defaults.
It's almost like leaving a key under the mat.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea at all.
Especially in this day and age.
Absolutely.
So get rid of those default passwords.
First thing you do, new router, change the password.
Got it. All right, so we've changed the default password.
Okay.
What's next?
Strong passwords.
Okay.
And DrayTek really emphasizes this.
Okay.
Long, complex, a mix of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff.
Okay.
And please, please, please.
Right. I'm listening.
Don't use the same password for multiple devices or services.
Oh, okay. So like if I have a password for my email, I shouldn't use that for like my online banking.
Exactly. Because if one gets compromised, they all get compromised.
So it's like using the same key for your house, your car, and your office.
Yeah.
You got it.
Not smart.
Not smart at all.
Okay. But how do I keep track of all these crazy passwords?
Don't worry. We'll get to password management tools later.
Okay, good. Because...
But for now, just remember the importance of unique and strong passwords.
All right. I will try my best.
That's all we ask.
Okay, so we've talked about passwords.
Right.
What else is there?
Well, let's talk about disabling unnecessary features.
Oh, okay, in my router.
Yes, in your router settings.
Okay.
Things like remote management.
Okay.
TR069, which is a technical protocol for remote management, and SNMP.
I'm not familiar with that one.
SNMP, yeah, it's a protocol for network management.
Okay.
Unless you absolutely need these features, turn them off.
So if I don't know what they are...
It's probably safe to turn them off.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly.
I like it.
It's all about minimizing your attack surface.
So this is kind of like locking the back door when you're not using it.
When you're not expecting visitors, exactly.
Okay, and I feel like this is another one of those basic security things.
Yes, this is like basic hygiene.
Okay.
Keep your router's firmware up to date.
The firmware. Okay, so that's like the software that runs the router.
Exactly.
Okay.
New firmware often includes critical security patches for newly discovered vulnerabilities.
Okay, so like when Apple sends out those updates for my phone...
Precisely.
I should do the same thing for my router.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Think of it as getting your digital flu shot.
I like that.
You don't want to leave yourself exposed to digital viruses.
Right. Definitely not. Okay, cool. So passwords, disabling features, keeping things updated.
Right.
What else is there?
Now, here's an interesting concept. Network segmentation using VLANs.
VLANs, what are those?
VLANs allow you to separate different parts of your network that don't need to communicate with each other.
Oh, okay.
So you can isolate your work devices from your personal devices, for example.
So like if one part gets infected, the damage is contained.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a great idea. It's like having firewalls within your firewall.
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
It's an extra layer of protection.
Okay, so VLAN.
VLANs are your friend.
Got it.
They can be a bit technical to set up.
Okay.
But the added security is worth it.
All right, so I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like limiting access to different parts of the network?
Right.
What about remote administration?
Yes, remote administration.
Is that something I should be worried about?
If you absolutely must use remote administration,
okay,
restrict access to specific IP addresses.
Oh, okay, so not just anyone can connect.
Exactly. Don't leave the door wide open.
So it's kind of like giving someone a key to your house.
Yes.
But you only give it to people you trust.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that analogy.
It helps to visualize these concepts.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, to make it even more secure, how about two-factor authentication?
Two-factor authentication. Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It adds an extra layer of security.
Oh, okay.
It requires not just your password, but also something else.
Right.
Like a temporary code from an app or a fingerprint scan.
Oh, like that extra layer of security at the airport.
Exactly.
Where they check your ID and your boarding pass.
Precisely.
Okay.
Makes it much harder for someone to impersonate you.
So it's like having a security guard check your ID and your ticket before letting you into a concert.
You got it.
Okay, makes sense.
Much harder for a hacker to crash the party.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
No one wants that.
Okay, so two-factor authentication is a good thing.
Two-factor authentication is your friend.
Got it. All right, moving on.
Let's talk about security certificates.
Okay, so what are those exactly?
Those are like digital badges that vouch for your router's identity.
Okay.
And DrayTek recommends changing those default security certificates.
Oh, okay.
Using unique certificates makes it much harder for attackers to impersonate your router.
So it's kind of like instead of wearing a generic uniform, you have your own unique ID badge.
Exactly.
Okay, so if everyone's wearing the same thing,
Yep.
It's much easier to blend in and cause trouble.
Precisely.
Got it.
It's like everyone's using the same default certificate, and that gets compromised.
Yeah.
It's like giving hackers a master key to everyone's house.
So we want to avoid that.
At all costs.
All right, so change those security certificates.
Yes, unique certificates are the way to go.
Of course, so we've talked about all these digital security measures,
Right.
but I feel like sometimes we forget about good old-fashioned physical security.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What does DrayTek have to say about that?
Limit physical access to your router and network equipment.
So, like, don't leave your router out in the open.
Exactly. Secure those cables. Hide them if you can.
Oh, okay.
Don't make it easy for someone to tamper with your setup.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So think about your physical security as well as your digital security.
Cool. Okay, so physically secure the router.
Yes.
Any other, like, simple tips that we might be overlooking?
Subscribe to your vendor's mailing lists.
Mailing lists.
Yeah, that way you'll stay informed about potential vulnerabilities and updates for your specific router model.
Oh, okay.
It's like signing up for neighborhood watch alerts for your digital neighborhood.
I like that, yeah, because I get those emails from Apple and Microsoft telling me about updates.
Right.
So I should do the same thing for my router.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So stay informed.
Stay informed.
All right, now let's get a little bit more technical.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's talk about secure protocols.
All right.
So when I'm setting up things like my VPN
Yes.
or my wireless security, what should I be looking for?
Always choose the strongest encryption methods available.
Encryption.
Well, think of it as choosing a steel vault over a cardboard box to store your valuables.
So like WPA2 over WEP?
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Stronger encryption equals stronger protection.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Now, for something that I think a lot of people don't even think about.
Okay, what's that?
DNS servers.
Ah, yes, the unsung heroes of the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're important, but I don't really understand what they do.
They translate website names into numerical IP addresses.
Oh.
So instead of having to remember a bunch of numbers,
Right.
you can just type in google.com.
Right.
And the DNS server will take care of the rest.
Okay, cool.
But you want to use trusted DNS servers.
Okay, why is that?
Because if you're using a rogue DNS server, it could redirect you to malicious websites.
Oh, so like instead of going to google.com, I could end up on some shady website.
Exactly.
That's not good.
Not good at all.
So how do I make sure I'm using a trusted DNS server?
Stick with your ISP's DNS servers.
Okay.
Or a trusted public source like Google's DNS.
Okay, so stick with the big names?
For the most part, yes.
All right, that makes sense.
It's like using a trusted map app instead of blindly following directions from a stranger.
I would never do that.
Good, you shouldn't.
All right, last but not least.
Backups.
Okay, yes, backups.
Backups are crucial.
I know.
Regularly back up your router's configuration so you can easily restore settings if needed.
So if those thing goes wrong,
you can get back up and running quickly.
It's like having a spare key for your digital house.
Exactly.
All right, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
You have. We've laid the foundation for a secure router.
That's just the first step.
But it's an important one.
So next, I guess we'll dive into the world of wireless security.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got our router locked down.
Yeah, the foundation is set.
But now I feel like we got to talk about Wi-Fi.
Right, wireless security.
Yeah, because everyone's using Wi-Fi these days.
Absolutely, it's the lifeblood of modern connectivity.
But it can also be a bit of a security nightmare.
Yeah, if you're not careful, it's like leaving your front door wide open.
Right, and putting up a big sign that says, free internet here.
Exactly.
So where do we start with wireless LAN best practices?
Well, let's talk about that button on your router that promises easy wireless connections. WPS.
Oh, yeah, WPS, I've used that before.
It's convenient, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But it can also be a security risk.
Really? How so?
WPS can be exploited by hackers to bypass your strong wireless password.
Oh, no.
Especially if your router is physically accessible.
So someone can just walk up to my router?
Potentially, yeah.
And crack my Wi-Fi password?
It's like having a hidden backdoor that anyone could potentially find.
That's not good.
So, unless you absolutely need it,
Oh.
DrayTek recommends disabling WPS.
Better safe than sorry. Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so no more WPS.
Unless you really need it.
Got it. What else should we know about wireless security?
Well, let's talk about guest networks.
Guest networks. So like if I have friends over.
Yeah, exactly.
I should put them on a separate network.
You probably don't want your visitors having access to your main network.
Right, where all my important stuff is.
Exactly.
Like my top secret cookie recipes.
Well, there you go. You don't want those falling into the wrong hands.
Exactly. So guest networks are a good idea.
DrayTek recommends setting up a separate, isolated guest network.
Okay, and that keeps my main network safe.
It's like having a designated waiting area for visitors.
Oh.
Where they can enjoy the internet, but they don't have access to the sensitive information on your main network.
So it's kind of like having a VIP area.
Yes.
And a general admission section.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, it's like the internet party.
Exactly. You control who gets access to the VIP lounge.
Cool. Okay, so guest networks are a must.
Definitely.
Now, what about passwords for my Wi-Fi?
Ah, yes. Those strong, unique passwords we talked about earlier.
Right, those.
They apply to your wireless network, too.
So I should have a different password for my Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. And make sure it's long, complex, and uses a mix of characters.
Okay, and change it every now and then.
Especially if you have staff turnover or guests frequently using your network.
Right, so it's like changing the locks.
Yeah.
After you've had a bunch of contractors working in your house.
You want to make sure only authorized people have access.
Okay, good point.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Public Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah. Public Wi-Fi, free internet everywhere you go.
It's tempting to connect to any free Wi-Fi signal you find.
I know, it's so convenient.
But you need to be extra cautious.
Really? Why?
You never know who else is on that network or what their intentions are.
Oh, so someone could be snooping on my internet traffic.
Potentially, yes.
So what does DrayTek say about using public Wi-Fi?
They practically warn against using it for anything sensitive.
Oh, wow.
It's like swimming in a pool of unknown germs.
That's a good way to put it.
You never know what you might catch.
So, unless I'm just checking the weather or something.
Right.
I should be using a VPN.
If you're doing anything sensitive on a public network.
Okay, so a VPN is basically a secure tunnel that protects my data.
It encrypts your connection, making it much harder for snoopers to intercept your online activities.
So it's a good idea to have a VPN.
Definitely. It's a must-have for anyone who uses public Wi-Fi regularly.
All right, noted. Anything else about Wi-Fi that we should be aware of?
Well, DrayTek points out that some devices might store and back up your Wi-Fi passwords to the cloud.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So like my phone could be backing up my Wi-Fi password?
Potentially, yes.
Is that a bad thing?
It can be convenient, sure.
Yeah.
But it also raises some potential security concerns.
So I'm basically trusting third-party companies with my Wi-Fi passwords.
You are. So if you're handling sensitive information, you might want to consider the potential risks.
Right, because what if those companies get hacked?
Exactly.
Then my Wi-Fi password could be out there.
It's a calculated risk.
Something to think about, for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, any other Wi-Fi gotchas that we should be aware of?
Well, if you're a Windows 10 user,
yeah,
DrayTek recommends disabling a feature called Wi-Fi Sense.
Wi-Fi Sense? What's that?
It automatically connects you to Wi-Fi networks shared by your contacts.
Oh, okay.
Sounds convenient.
Yeah, it does.
But it also means you could be connecting to networks without knowing anything about their security.
So it's like letting your friends borrow your car.
Yeah.
Without knowing if they have a valid driver's license.
Exactly. You're putting a lot of trust in your contacts.
Okay, so it's about being in control of my digital security.
Yes.
And making conscious choices about what I'm comfortable sharing.
Exactly.
All right, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground with Wi-Fi security.
We have, but there's one more crucial piece of the puzzle.
Oh, okay.
Passwords.
Passwords, right, because we need those to connect to the Wi-Fi in the first place.
Exactly. Passwords are the gatekeepers to our digital lives.
So we need to make sure they're well protected.
Absolutely, and that's what we'll dive into next.
Okay, so we've secured our router, we've locked down our Wi-Fi.
Right.
But now it's time to talk about those pesky passwords.
Yeah, passwords, the bane of our digital existence.
I mean, we need them for everything.
Right. Every single website, every app, every service.
But trying to remember dozens of unique and complex passwords.
It's a nightmare.
It is. It's like trying to memorize a phone book.
Yeah, and DrayTek dedicates a whole section to this in their white paper.
I can see why, because it's a big problem.
It is. But luckily, they offer some solutions.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The first thing they recommend is using a password safe.
A password safe. Okay, what's that?
Think of it like a high security vault.
Okay.
For all your passwords and sensitive information.
So instead of trying to remember all those passwords,
right,
I just need to remember one master password.
Exactly. One password to unlock the vault.
That sounds much more manageable.
It is. It takes a huge load off your brain.
And what about those super strong passwords that DrayTek keeps talking about?
Well, a password safe can actually generate those for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you don't have to rack your brain trying to come up with unique combinations.
So it's like having a password-making machine that spits out these super secure passwords.
And it stores them securely for you.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Password safes are a game changer.
All right, so password safes are a must. Now, let's talk about unique passwords again.
Okay.
Because DrayTek really hammers this home.
And for good reason. It's one of the most important things you can do to protect your online accounts.
Okay, but why is it so important to have a unique password for every single thing?
Imagine using the same key for your house, your car, and your safe deposit box.
Yeah.
If someone gets hold of that one key, they have access to everything.
That's a good point.
Same principle applies to passwords.
Okay, so if I use the same password for my email and my online banking,
and someone gets hold of that password, they can access both accounts.
Not good.
Not good at all.
Okay, so unique passwords for everything.
It's non-negotiable.
All right, I'm convinced.
Good.
But how do I make these passwords memorable?
Right, that's the challenge.
Without sacrificing security?
Well, DrayTek actually offers some tips for that.
Oh, okay. What are they?
They suggest using the first letters of lyrics from your favorite song.
Oh.
Or a memorable quote. And then you sprinkle in some numbers and symbols for good measure.
So it's like a secret code.
Yeah, that's easy for you to remember.
But hard for anyone else to guess.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a clever trick.
It is, and it makes creating strong passwords a bit more fun.
All right, so we've covered router admin, wireless security, and now password management.
Right, those are the big three.
But I feel like DrayTek throws in some bonus advice.
They do. They talk about emerging threats and additional precautions.
Okay, so what should we be aware of?
Well, the first thing they emphasize is that cybersecurity is constantly evolving.
Right, it's like a never-ending arms race.
Exactly. New threats pop up all the time, and old technologies become obsolete.
So it's like we have to keep updating our defenses.
It's all about staying informed and adapting.
So it's kind of like keeping your software updated.
Precisely. Those updates often include security patches that address newly discovered vulnerabilities.
Okay, so stay updated. Got it.
Now, another thing they talk about is IoT security.
IoT.
Okay.
Like the Internet of Things.
All those internet-connected devices.
Right, like smart home gadgets, even internet-enabled cars.
Exactly. And while these devices offer amazing convenience, they also introduce new entry points for hackers.
So it's like having more doors and windows
that need to be secured.
Okay, so we need to think about the security of all our connected devices.
Absolutely. It's not just about computers and phones anymore.
Right, it's about everything.
And of course, we can't forget about good old-fashioned antivirus software.
Antivirus, right? That's still important.
It is. It's like your digital immune system.
Okay.
Constantly scanning for and neutralizing threats.
So keep those antivirus subscriptions up to date.
Absolutely.
All right, now for a topic that kind of scares me.
What's that?
Ransomware.
Ah, yes, ransomware, the digital hostage situation.
It's like something out of a movie.
It can be devastating.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories.
The best defense against ransomware is regular offline backups.
Backups, right. Always back things up.
Think of it as your insurance policy in case of a digital disaster.
All right, so backups are a must.
Absolutely.
Now, what about firewalls?
Right, firewalls.
Because I know my router has a firewall.
It does, and DrayTek encourages exploring those advanced firewall features.
Okay, like what kind of features are we talking about?
Things like content filtering.
Okay.
And IP blocking.
So it's like adding an extra layer of security to my network.
Exactly. You can carefully control what comes in and goes out.
Okay, I'll have to check out those settings.
Definitely worth exploring.
All right, last but not least.
Tor and the dark web.
Ooh, the dark web. That sounds scary.
It can be, but it's important to understand what it is.
Okay, so what is it?
Tor is a network that allows for anonymous communication.
Okay.
And the dark web is a part of the internet that's not indexed by search engines.
So it's like a hidden part of the internet.
And it can be used for both good and bad.
Right. Like anonymity can be good for whistleblowers and journalists.
Absolutely.
But it can also be used for illegal activities.
Unfortunately, yes.
So should I be worried about Tor traffic on my network?
It's something to be aware of.
Okay.
DrayTek suggests monitoring or controlling Tor usage.
So like if I see a lot of Tor traffic,
yeah,
that could be a red flag.
It could be, especially in sensitive environments.
Okay, so beware of Tor. Got it.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything.
Wow, that was a lot of information.
It was, but it's all important.
It is. I feel like I've learned a lot.
That's what we aim for.
And hopefully our listeners have too.
I hope so, because even small steps can make a big difference in terms of security.
Right. It's all about being proactive and aware of the risks.
And remember, you don't have to do everything at once.
Yes, start with the basics.
Change those default passwords, enable two-factor authentication.
And then gradually work your way up to the more advanced stuff.
Exactly. And most importantly, stay curious. Keep learning.
Because the world of cybersecurity is always changing.
It is. So stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe out there in the digital wilds.
Wow. That's great advice. Well, I think that's a wrap for this deep dive on router security best practices.
Yeah, I think we covered it all.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
And until next time, stay secure.